Shalom, miserable humans! Well, after ranking the different voices of the tricks and the specialists, I have finally gotten around to the different voices of the Winx Club themselves. Yeah, I know it's taken me a while, but I've been busy, because I recently got married, so I was busy with wedding stuff and all that came after. Plus, there are videos that I wanted to do that I felt more passionate about, and I didn't want to make this video half-baked. Plus, considering the technical difficulties that I've been having with clips, I might as well do a video that isn't heavy on clips. Anyway, Winx Club has been dubbed by 6 different companies, none of which have ever gone to dub the entirety of the franchise. Those dubs will be 4Kids, Cinelume, Dubbing Brothers, Nickelodeon, DeviantArt, and 3Beat. So today I will be looking at all the voices of the Winx Club and ranking them from worst to best. Also, I know in the cases of some of these characters in certain dubs, they have different actresses voice them in one episode for whatever reason. However, if they don't last for very long, I'm not going to include them in this list. Once again, keep in mind that this is just my opinion, so don't be about it. Also, no, I won't be including Roxy because I don't really consider her a Winx. Plus, her voices all have a very similar sound to them and aren't really that distinct from each other, which goes with how Roxy isn't really that distinct in terms of personality compared to the other Winx Club girls. But to briefly rank her voices, I would say from best to worst would be her Nick voice, Liliana Mummy, her DeviantArt voice, Susie Myers, and lastly, her Cinelume voice, Sarah Camacho. Now with that out of the way, let's dive right on in. Bloom tends to suffer a bit in terms of her dubs. She doesn't have the absolute worst collection of voices, we'll get to that later, but when her voices are bad, they tend to be among the worst from their respective dubs. Part of that is because of how miscast the actresses tend to be or the poor direction they're given, plus considering how in the later seasons Bloom's character has been butchered, her voices tend to make it worse. A lot of times just being generically nice, but having no real fire to them, no pun intended. Her voices tend to work best when they are sweet but still have sass and kind of hot-headed nature, but not in a way that makes her a raging fireball, just enough to give an edge to this powder puff that can be a savage. The worst of the bunch being Cindy Robinson of the Dubbing Brothers dub. First of all, Cindy Robinson is a great actress and has many credits to her name. This just sadly isn't one of them. Her voice is just so high-pitched to where she sounds like a mouse, the inflections are weird, it irks my nerves, she comes up as super whiny and it's melodramatic as Tartarus.
I've never seen Mike hold the cat without sneezing his head off. And seriously, Mandragora is a joke. There's no way she could have beaten all the specialists.
She honestly sounds like a terrible impression of Kristen Chenoweth, who at the studio actually heard this and thought it was a good performance. It's by far one of the worst performances from this terrible dub. Anytime I hear this voice, it just makes me want to rip my ears off. Just so awful. Not faring that much better is Helena Evangelou from the first 3 seasons of the Cinelume dub. Her voice is just absolutely emotionless, devoid of personality, monotone delivery, and absolutely soulless.
But all my friends go on holidays by themselves. That would have been the best present ever.
I will be fair and say that it's probably not Helena's fault, but the fault of the directors, because she's actually played a one-time character on Arthur, where she was a blind girl named Marina who befriended Prunella, and she was actually pretty good there. Also, fun fact, a lot of the Cinelume cast members voice characters in Arthur. Anyway, this makes me think that she was given horrible direction, because until I saw that, I thought her acting was just genuinely awful, like a bad amateur fan dub that you'd find on YouTube. However, her sound, while cute, just isn't suited for Bloom, because she has no real fire and any attempts at it sound pathetic. Much better, but still bad, is Emily Kramer of the 3Beat dub. She just sounds like a whiny and bratty middle school mean girl.
What do you mean Sky left? Like out of the blue? What about my surprise?
I will say that she at least has some anger to help give the character more personality than the likes of Cindy and Helena, who are totally devoid of personality. However, it doesn't make her feel fiery, but rather just a brat and a boring one at that. But I guess that goes perfectly with the terrible and childish art style that looks like an animated version of those old Moxie Girls dolls. Now we get to a decent Bloom voice with Haven Pascal of the DeviantArt dub. Her voice is sweet and soft, but that's about it. There's nothing really special about her performance, and it doesn't really have much fire to it. She portrays her cinnamon roll nature well, but that's about it.
I've never seen this statue before. Maybe in rescuing the Digmoles in the past, We changed the present.
She honestly just gives the textbook definition of a generic protagonist. While not bad like the others, and her voice is appealing enough to listen to, she just doesn't have much in the way of personality. However, given the absolutely heinous script she had to work with, I can see why. Now we move on to the good Bloom voices. It's about time. Angela Galupa from the 4th season of the Cinelume dub. First of all, I have to say that I actually thought she was Ashley Johnson at first. I mean, they sound so much alike, and for those of you who don't know, Ashley Johnson is the voice of teenage Gwen Tennyson from the Ben 10 franchise, Tara from Teen Titans, and Gretchen Grundler from Recess.
Kiko, I'm so happy. Say something to me, little one. Say anything. This is your doing, right? Thanks, Roxy. It's a wonderful present.
Her voice does at least have personality and a distinctive sound that helps her stand out among the other voices. I honestly wish that she had been the one to voice Bloom from the very beginning of the dub. It would have been so much more tolerable. Plus, her more mature sound shows how Bloom is supposed to be wiser than she was in the previous seasons. So yeah, a good voice, but not a great one. I feel because she doesn't have much to work with due to Bloom's character becoming awful at this point. With all of her preachy dialogue, she can come off like a dumb PSA, and I don't blame Angela for this. She's really just doing the best with the terrible material she was given, but it's still a good performance, just not the best. Now we finally have a great voice, Molly C. Quinn of the Nickelodeon dub. I honestly do think she does a great job with the emotions of the character. Not as good as my number one choice, but we'll get to that.
You said it smells like a warm fire on a cold night, or the first day of spring. You said it smells like happiness. You said it smells like me.
I love that she has a deeper tone to her voice compared to Bloom's other voices because it actually works. Just because a character is a cinnamon roll doesn't mean they have to have a super high-pitched voice, especially when those voices don't work for Bloom. There's a sincerity to Molly's performance that really works with Bloom. She's sweet, but it's not overdone. I'm honestly impressed because Molly has never really voiced a character before Winx, and a lot of the time, a big-name celebrity's inexperience with voice acting really shows. Sadly, they do make her speak in a higher pitched voice in season 6, which, while not annoying, isn't nearly as good as when she was using her natural voice.
Come on, Winx, this is what we've been waiting for.
And finally, we have the perfect Bloom voice, Liza Jacqueline of the 4Kids dub. I mean, come on, you all knew this was gonna happen. Even people who hate the 4Kids dub absolutely love Lisa as Bloom. I mean, Lisa just is Bloom.
You think you can invade my school, mess with my friends, and get away with it?
But please, don't send me back home. I know I belong here. This is the most amazing place with the most awesome people ever.
You're totally conceited, totally cocky, totally boring waste of good oxygen.
She has the perfect sound to her voice with a super cinnamon roll sound to it, but she will also destroy you if you make her mad. I love how she manages to make sure Bloom doesn't get too angry like you'd expect a fire character, but it's just enough to make her seem like a hothead who doesn't need anger management classes. She's awkward but endearing, something Disney's adorable heroines have been lacking recently. She feels like a natural-born leader. She also does a mermazing job with the emotional scenes. You feel every emotion she's going through and feel for the character thanks to Lisa.
Why didn't you tell me about it before? Did you think that there was something weird or wrong with me? That I wasn't normal? When you told me about being adopted, why didn't you tell me about this too?
She probably could have made Bloom tolerable in the later seasons. Well, probably not, but she would have made it slightly better. I absolutely love the growl she has in her voice when she's angry.
You can't help your friend. She's finished. No, she isn't. Get out of my way!
Honestly, comparing any of the other voices to her is just laughable in my opinion. The only reason I didn't cast her as Bloom in my recast videos is that she's retired from voice acting. But she will always be the best Bloom with the best Dragonfire yell ever.
I'm going to get you for that!
Much like Bloom, Stella honestly has a mixed bag of voices, and when her voices are bad, they're typically among some of the worst in the dub. Part of that is because of what a recognizable archetype she is as the super feminine popular girl. This can be an issue when her voices are overly nasal and feel more cringy than actually fabulous. I'm not gonna lie, a good number of her voices irk my nerves and feel better suited for Mitzi than Stella. She feels more like a caricature than an actual character, but when her voice is voices are great. Oh my gosh, they are so great. The worst of the bunch is Erin Fitzgerald from the second movie of the Dubbing Brothers dub. She also voiced Darcy in that movie, and while her voice was terrible as Darcy, it's even worse as Stella. It's just so high-pitched, whiny, childish, and so flippin' irritating.
Perhaps I didn't express myself properly. I am Stella, Princess of Solaria, Winx guardian fairy, and above all, Bloom's best friend. Let us through!
It doesn't help how flanderized Stella is in these movies, but the voice doesn't really help. They made her annoying, and anytime she speaks, I just want her to shut up because the voice is super annoying with weird inflections and a horrible tone. It makes Stella come off as a wannabe Paris Hilton trying to sound like a lame impression of Fran Drescher. It's just awful. Not that much better is Becca Ordonez Zakarin from the first and third movies of the Dubbing Brothers dub. Much like Erin, she's whiny and annoying with a nasal tone.
Bardos, baby, show us more cute baby pictures of our Bloom, please.
However, her voice is slightly more tolerable with it being less high-pitched, especially in the third movie, but all the issues I have with Erin's performance are the same I have with Becca's. She comes off as more whiny, annoying, and cringy rather than fabulous. Very much better but still terrible is Amy Gross of the Nickelodeon dub. Much like Erin and Becca, she's really nasal and has such an annoying tone to her voice.
Exactly. We've only got 10 hours until my party, and we've got a ton of stuff to do.
She's better than Erin and Becca because she is pretty good at the emotional scenes. Plus, in terms of emotionality, she's good, whereas Erin and Becca are melodramatic as Tartarus. However, she still sounds like a stereotypical whiny brat, which is not helped by the flanderization of her character. I honestly feel like her and Mitzi should have switched voice actors. Daniela Monet would have been great as Stella. But yeah, Amy Gross is a great actress, but her performance as Stella just irks my nerves with this annoying voice, especially when she gets all whiny. She doesn't sound like a character we're supposed to like. This is more like a voice that you give a spoiled brat that we're supposed to hate. Now we finally have a good voice with Rebecca Solar of the DeviantArt and 3-Beep dubs, who also voices Tecna in the 4Kids dub, but we'll get there when we get there. Rebecca's performance as Stella is honestly great. She manages to show off how fabulous, eccentric, energized, and confident she is.
Do you think we're gonna have a dressing room, a makeup artist, and all that?
Yes, she is a bit nasal, but it's not so nasal that it's irritating or makes Stella come off as a caricature. She honestly makes Stella charming. I mean, there's only so much she can do with these terrible scripts, but out of all the Winx Club girls in the DeviantArt/3-Beep dubs, she actually is by far the best one. And from what I've seen in World of Winx, she actually does a good job with Stella's more emotional moments. However, I don't think her voice is quite as memorable as the other two. Runner-up, we have Jennifer Seguin of the Cinelume dub. I know this is shocking, considering my hatred of the Cinelume dub, but when someone does well, they do really well, and Jennifer does a truly great job.
Good luck with your shopping, and pizza thief, that mud brown is a very good color for you. I suggest you stick with it. Go!
I will admit that I didn't used to be a fan of Jennifer Seguin as Stella because I thought her voice sounded too deep and mature for her. However, watching Unicorn Wars videos where he shows a lot of clips of Jennifer's performance, it actually grew on me. Plus, the maturity of her voice makes sense with the fact that Stella is actually a year older than the rest of the Winx because of how she was left back a year. Plus, she doesn't sound so mature that she sounds old. She still feels age appropriate and like the Stella we know and love. I can honestly see why a lot of people love it because deeper voices tend not to be what you would associate with a character like Stella, but that just helps her stand out and be more memorable. However, no one can beat my number one, and that's Caren Manuel Tackett of the 4Kids dub. I know a lot of people don't like how she feels like a valley girl, but she honestly doesn't. Otherwise, she'd be saying the word like a lot more. Plus, have y'all heard her Nick voice? Her 4Kids voice is just the perfect voice for Stella because Caren just is Stella.
It's time to make an entrance. A fabulous entrance is essential, door. I was trying to create a new shade of pink. It was in the name of fashion. I don't regret it. Good luck shopping. Oh, and that preteen meets goth look is very appealing on you. I suggest you stick with it. No!
It has a sound you associate with a character like Stella, but it's not too high-pitched or nasal. She honestly has all the strengths of Jennifer and Rebecca, but none of their weaknesses. Her voice feels the most organic with the character. Yes, she's loud, but it really fits with her showboating personality. Anytime I see something with Stella, this is the voice I imagine coming out of her because it fits her like a glove. Fabulous and truly perfect for her. The only reason I didn't cast her as Stella in my recast videos is because of the fact that Caren seems to be retired from voice acting. Otherwise, I would have kept her. But to me, no one else will ever manage to capture the pure perfection of Stella like Caren did. Also, you guys should check out Lola Valentine's interview with Caren on the Winx Forever podcast because it's just mermazing. Not to mention, check out Lola's content on there in general because it's phenomenal. When it comes to Flora's voices, she tends to suffer from voices that make her sound like a Fluttershy knockoff, or even melodramatic performances. She has sadly only ever had one voice actress that is actually Latina. For me, her best voices tend to be soft and sweet, but also show her as the group mom that has a backbone. At the bottom of the list is Brittany Presley of the 3B dub, who sounds like a Fluttershy knockoff, accompanied by some horrendous whitewashing in a terrible animation style.
You'll have to water your sisters while I'm gone.
She has no maturity or backbone and just sounds like a whiny and spineless white girl. Yes, Flora should have a soft and light voice, but this is too extreme with no real backbone. She's awful, but I also can't say much because she's also just so boring to listen to. Much better, but still terrible, is Holly Gothel Frankel of the Cinnamon dub. I know I will get a bunch of angry fans raging at me for this because people love this voice, but I don't get it. Why does she sound like some melodramatic theater person stereotype?
The trees couldn't bring themselves to watch. They were too scared. When it was all over, Valtor flew off in that direction.
She's so over the top that I can't take her seriously at all. I mean, what happened to her after season 1 that made her so clownishly melodramatic? Her performance in season 1 was unmemorable, but at least it wasn't so ridiculous. Not to mention, the higher pitch to her voice in season 4 is slightly grating and makes her sound so overly doting like she's some preschool teacher during story time.
With our new powers, we'll be able to help other people like never before.
I know her as Fern from Arthur, and there she's actually good, so it's likely the fault of the direction she was given. Faring a bit better is Stephanie Shea of the Dubbing Brothers dub. Much like Brittany, her performance is soft and sweet, but it doesn't feel like she has much of a backbone or maturity.
The plants, the trees, I hear their voices on the wind. I can understand every word, every one of their emotions.
Honestly, I love the idea of this casting in theory, especially with her performance as Hinata from Naruto. Hinata is a character who is soft-spoken and sweet, and with her being a mother in Boruto, she really shows off how she can have a backbone, be mature, and strike fear into the hearts of everyone. I blame this more on the direction than Stephanie herself, and honestly I think she could have been a good Flora if they gave her better direction. But her voice is at least more tolerable than Holly and Brittany. Plus, it doesn't help that the characters in this dub sound so similar to each other that it's hard to make her stand out. Now we finally have gotten to Flora's decent voices with Eileen Stevens of the DeviantArt dub. I will say that despite her voice being much deeper than you'd expect from Flora, that it kind of works because it's still sweet sounding and also showing her maturity and nurturing nature.
This place is massive. How can you guard all of it from intruders and predators?
However, I will say that nothing about Eileen's performance is very memorable. Much like a lot of the voices in this dub, her voice doesn't really stand out to me and is kind of generic. Finally, we've gotten to the good Flora voices with Carrie Williams of the 4Kids dub. It's truly sad that there are only 2, but those are the clans that we've been dealt. For the longest time, Carrie was actually my favorite, and I will get to why she's not anymore when I talk about my number 1, because I love how soft and sweet her voice is, but still sounding like she has a backbone.
My theory is that if more plants could talk, deforestation would be dramatically reduced. It's worth trying, if it just saves one tree.
Unlike Brittany or Stephanie, Carrie's soft voice sounds the most natural and mature of the bunch. She can be the biggest sweetheart, but she will also call you out when you go too far and won't hesitate to destroy you. She speaks softly, but she packs a massive punch. It kind of feels weird not having her as number 1 because she was my favorite for so long, but I still adore her voice and will defend her 4Kids Tackett's voice from those who say her voice is terrible because, I mean, listen to her other voices, people. Her voice is definitely memorable and doesn't sound like a doormat. And her best voice is Alejandra Reynoso from the Nickelodeon dub. First of all, no, this is not just because she's actually Latina. She's honestly an amazing Flora to the point where I regret not casting her as Flora in my recast video. She just is Flora.
No, don't be sorry. I'm Flora. I think we're roommates. And this is my talking plant. It's a magical creature. Are you really, really sure you don't want my help? The bird's wings look just like the petals of a flower.
Her voice is soft and sweet, but there's a maturity to it that feels more natural than any of her other voices. I feel like that's why I put her above Carrie, because her voice just feels more organic, but her voice also sounds memorable with how sweet and nurturing she is. She even manages to have her performance still be great in the later seasons, despite the shipwreck of the script she had to work with. She also does a great job with Flora's more emotional moments. The woman just puts her all into her performance. She's truly the fairy of nature and exudes Flora with every fiber of her being. Plus, being Latina certainly is a nice bonus. Aisha has one of the better collection of voices. Not exactly saying much, but still. Her voices tend to work best when they are deeper and can show her tough attitude but still be able to show her vulnerability. Sadly, in the cases of certain voices, they are either wildly miscast or given poor direction. But unlike Flora and Musa, her voice actress all at least have a little bit of African American ancestry. At the very bottom is Mela Lee of the Dubbing Brothers dub, who has the least amount of black ancestry of all her voices. And if you think I put her at the bottom simply because of that, just listen to this terrible southern accent.
I feel the sound of rain falling all over the world. Every drop, from the tiniest puddle to the deepest oceans.
Why does she sound like a ridiculous southern belle? I keep expecting her to say the phrase, "I do declare." Why did they have to give the one black girl a southern accent? Now, I do think black women with southern accents are incredibly attractive, such as Tiana from The Princess and the Frog. However, it doesn't work with Aisha because she's not from a world that is southern coded. She's a black princess from Andros. Mela Lee's natural voice would have worked much better for the character. Even when ignoring the accent, which is impossible, the performance feels so over the top and exaggerated, like the character knows she's in a movie and she's hamming it up for the audience. Not a good combo. Not very much better is Lucinda Davis of the Cinnaloom dub. I know a lot of Lucinda fans are gonna come for me, but I don't care because this is just a horrible choice for Aisha. This ain't Aisha. Why does she sound so childish and have such odd inflections?
Who says you get to drive? What, you think I've never ridden a motorbike before?
She also sounds so emotionless in the first 3 seasons. People praise her for her performance during the emotional scenes, but she just sounds the same as she always does. So lifeless and kind of has a whiny sound. Plus, I'm not a fan of how light her voice sounds. It just doesn't suit Aisha at all and comes off like a bad fan dub, which tends to be the case with this dub. Now, I've seen other works of Lucinda's, and she's actually quite talented. And thankfully in season 4, she's much better, but I still don't like the light and high-pitched voice for Aisha. The only reason she's not at the bottom is because of how in the last few episodes of season 4, when she's dealing with Naboo's depth, she's actually really good. Where was this performance?
Ethereal fairies, I beg of you, please, give me the spell of life! Then we have nothing else to say to each other!
But overall, her performance is terrible, lacking in emotions, too light and high-pitched for Aisha, and honestly sounds very childish, which makes her moments of being tough just sound so pathetic. Now we move on to her mediocre voice, Eleanor Vanderberg of the 3-Beep dub. It's just alright, nothing memorable or distinct about it.
You've done enough today with your surprise. Leave it to us.
It's still too light for her, and while it has some character to it, it's just not all that memorable, to the point where I don't really have much to say about it. Now we move on to a good, not great Aisha voice with Alicia Dislaro. Many people say this voice is boring and that Eleanor was better, but honestly, Alicia is better in my opinion. She has a beautiful tone to her voice with how deep it is.
It's a temporary solution.
And it wouldn't hurt you to try to be nice to Squonk, you know.
I will admit that she is lacking a bit in personality, but I blame that more on the script than Aisha herself. She honestly just has such a good tone to her voice that it suits Aisha that I can't help but like it. And while she's a bit devoid of character, she's not given much to work with. It at least sounds nice, and thank goodness for her having a deep voice. Now we finally have gotten to the great voices with Kiki Palmer of the Nickelodeon dub. I will admit that Kiki is a bit of an odd case. She does a great job as Aisha by making her a tough and strong sporty character. Plus, I think the casting of Kiki is a brilliant idea in theory. My issue comes in the fact that they make her speak in a higher pitched voice.
This course is a chance to learn from each other and perfect new skills. But the only skill you've perfected so far is how to get a big head.
Kiki's normal voice is so deep and gorgeous that I think it would have suited Aisha much better. Plus, there are times that the direction she's given is very over the top, especially during Naboo's death. However, other times her emotional moments are actually quite strong, and if the Nick dub wasn't taking such a childish direction, I feel like she would have done much better. Plus, her voice actually is very distinctive, which helps her be able to stand out amongst the other Winx. Despite my issues with Kiki's performance, I do still love her performance. Kiki is just great, I love her. To the surprise of no one, the #1 best Aisha voice is Vashti Mumpoint of the 4Kids dub. I mean, do I even need to say anything? Vashti just is Aisha, the same way Lisa Jacqueline is Bloom and Lisa Ortiz is Icy. Just absolute perfection.
No way and no how. Give me back the pixies now! Can you hand me that helmet? Now slide to the back seat. Come on, how am I gonna drive with you sitting in the front like that?
Oh man, witches? I used to wipe the floor with your kind back in Tides.
Her voice is so rich, deep, and gorgeous. She perfectly captures her tough, strong, and sporty side, but she also manages to perfectly portray the emotional scenes when she's having to be vulnerable. She portrays the emotional moments so flawlessly that honestly, it's a bit laughable seeing Kiki and especially Lucinda trying to perform those scenes.
We have this tradition in Tides, but I never thought my parents would enforce it. But today, they told me that they have picked out the guy who they expect me to marry.
I can't accept anyone else as Aisha because of the high standards I have for her that were set by Vashti. Anytime I hear her speak, I just see and hear Aisha. She just nails the character better than any other actress who has ever had the role by far, and no one could ever do a better job than her. She is so awesome and is to Aisha what James Woods is to Hades from Hercules and Robin Williams is to the genie from Aladdin. Out of all of the Winx Club girls, Musa sadly has the worst collection of voices. The issue is that a lot of her voices tend to have a very feminine sound to them, which doesn't really work for a character that is tomboyish and super snarky. Her voices tend to work best when they are raspy and show off her sassy and aloof personality. I mean, why would you have someone like Musa, who is a tomboy punk, be given a feminine voice? Did no one think this through at all? Just like Flora, she has only ever had one voice actress that has actually matched to her racial background of being East Asian coded. She also only had one actress do her own singing despite being the fairy of music. It's sad since Musa is supposed to have a beautiful voice. Anyway, at the very bottom of the list is Anik Matern from seasons 3 and 4 of the Cinelum dub. She's at least not super feminine like a lot of Musa's other voices, but she freaking sounds like a middle-aged white woman recovering from a cold.
I want to be with you more than anything in the world. I want to hold you close to my heart, talk to you, and hear you sing. But if I decide to go with you, the universe will be in serious trouble. Goodbye, Mom.
I can't take anything she says seriously. Her voice just drives me crazy with how she clearly sounds too old for Musa and how congested she is. It's honestly laughable how bad she sounds. She was also the voice of Stormy in the dub as well, and she sounded terrible as Stormy as well. I can't help but cringe every time I hear this voice come out of Musa. It's even worse than the Lorax when you hear Zac Efron's voice coming out of a character that is meant to be 12 but clearly doesn't sound like it. Who thought this was okay, because they deserve to be thrown into the Omega Dimension. Faring better, but still terrible, is Sarah Saito of the Dubbing Brothers dub. Just like all the Winx Club girls in this dub, she's overly feminine, devoid of personality, isn't distinctive, and is melodramatic as Tartarus.
Hey, don't play dumb, Riven. I saw you watching me all through the ceremony.
This ain't Musa. This is just some drama student stereotype trying to be Musa, but has never seen the show and thinks she's a super feminine girly girl. I hate it, moving on. Not very much better is Sarah McAuliffe in the first 2 seasons of the Cineloom dub. Way too light and feminine, but at least not melodramatic like Sarah Saito.
Even so, I saw him in action today, and I think he's lost every bit of charm he ever possessed. One thing's for sure, I don't ever want to see him again. He's become a real jerk.
She still sounds like a bad fan dub, and the fact that she also voiced Stormy and sounds exactly the same makes it worse. I mean, she at least sounds better as Musa than she did as Stormy because she at least sounds a bit aloof, but it feels more like she's just foaming in her performance rather than actually coming off as genuinely aloof. Terrible performance that can even be laughable at times, especially when she's doing emotional moments or trying to act tough. Not terrible, but still bad is Allison Leigh Rosenfeld. Just like Emily Kramer as Bloom, she has a bit of a bratty sound to her, though not nearly as bad.
I haven't heard from you for so long, and now that you're back, you didn't even call to tell me? Same old egomaniac.
She's very bland, but at least has more personality to her than Sarah Saito or Sarah McAuliffe, but nothing really stands out about her in the slightest, other than her sounding mildly angry and a tad bratty. It's at least better than Emily Kramer's performance as Bloom in this dub. Now we move on to a decent voice with Kate Bristol of the DeviantArt dub. Kate does a good job at portraying Musa's aloofness and sounding a bit mature. She even does a decent enough job at Musa's snarky moments. However, she's still too feminine and not that memorable.
I think I've just found someone who can help us.
Nothing about her sound really stands out or makes me think of Musa the moment I hear it like it should. She at least has a beautiful singing voice, but that's not enough to make her a good Musa.
Winged creatures, what are you? You're fairies, you're fairies. I know it's true.
Now we've finally gotten to the good Musa voices, with the runner-up being Lisa Ortiz of the 4Kids dub. It's sad that there are only 2, but I did say that she had the worst collection of voices. It honestly feels like a betrayal to not have Lisa as number 1, especially since she was my favorite for so long, but I will get to why she's not anymore later. But I will say that she is absolutely flawless at Musa's snark. She arguably does it better than my number 1 choice.
Quick, it's 2 a.m. Shouldn't you be hanging upside down in a cave somewhere?
I also love the very raspy and streetwise sound that Lisa has given Musa. It's a lot of fun and really adds a lot of personality to her character. Plus, Lisa is a voice acting legend. I'm also bitter that Lisa can actually sing, but they didn't let her do her singing for Musa? Shameful. She's also really mermazing at portraying Musa's emotional moments. Her performance of the Crystal Labyrinth is honestly my favorite, and you can really hear Lisa so close to breaking down, but is trying to keep it together.
You have to believe that more than anything in the world, I want to hold you again. I want to hug you, talk to you. I want to hear you sing. But the rest of the world would be in trouble if I go with you. I'm sorry, Mom.
I honestly adore Lisa so much, and for so long I considered her the best Musa. And while she definitely brings out the most personality with the character, I will admit that her sound is slightly cartoony. It's not to the point where I can't take her seriously, and it's certainly memorable, but that's definitely why I don't have her as number 1 anymore. I will always adore this performance because it's iconic, and Lisa Ortiz is one of the standout actors in this dub. However, I do need to acknowledge someone who is better, and that is Romy Dames of the Nickelodeon dub. Romy has a mermazing sound from Musa that is raspy and slightly nasal, which is perfect for her snarky and tomboyish attitude. But she also sounds more natural than Lisa, which makes her performance feel more organic, which is why I slightly prefer her over Lisa.
Let's see how you feel in half an hour. Because you are now Chief Stella Sitter.
We could try looking under S for Cyrenix.
Or F for Fat Chance.
Musa, you knew it wasn't me?
Well, of course. I know you hate working in groups.
Oh no, the tricks!
I have never been so insulted in all my life.
She also excels at Musa's emotional moments better than any of her other voices. While Lisa's performance of the Crystal Labyrinth is my favorite, Romy still does a great job of it.
I want to be with you more than anything in the world. I want to feel your arms surround me. I want to laugh with you and sing together the way we used to. The entire universe is depending on me. I have to go, Mom.
And her performance when Tecna is trapped in the Omega Dimension is honestly heartbreaking, where Romy just dials up the emotions to 1,000.
something! We have to save her!
The woman put her heart and soul into these moments. I wish she had gotten to dub the episode from season 2 where Musa is having family drama with her father. Romy would have absolutely killed it in that episode. Her snark might not be as good as Lisa's, mostly because the dialogue isn't nearly as good in the Nick dub, but she still has good lines, and Romy even manages to take some unfunny lines and make them sound funny. Her performance is just so engaging. She even managed to be Fincredible in the later seasons, despite that the scripts were pure garbage. I will be honest and say Kimiko Glenn would be the perfect Musa because of how she would capture the streetwise attitude and snark of Lisa, but also have the more organic sound of Romy. Plus the fact that she has a phenomenal singing voice helps. But besides that, it's sad that Romy is the only Asian actress who has ever voiced Musa. But that's not the only reason she's number one. She's truly a Fincredible Musa, and it's no wonder that she's universally considered the best voice Musa has ever had. Out of all the Winx Club girls, Tecna honestly has the best collection of voices. Luckily, she never has to worry about getting stereotypically nerdy sounding voices, though that could be because she doesn't have a stereotypically nerdy look that is associated with that archetype. A lot of Tecna's voices do tend to have raspiness to them, that is supposed to help show her struggle with embracing her emotions, a storyline the writers constantly go back to because they can't think of anything else for her to struggle with. But for me, and yeah, my bias is gonna show here, I always associate her with a British accent. I'll get to why I love that later, but it shows how foreign she is to the other girls who embrace their emotions, whereas she sees them as illogical. I actually have a friend that's British, and she actually didn't know that yellow school buses on land were a real thing and that they were just a creation of Hollywood, only for me to tell her that it's actually a real thing. That honestly reminds me of how Tecna didn't understand the concept of a mop, broom, and bucket all the way back in season 1. So yeah, it's more than just the whole English equals smart stereotype. At the very bottom is Sabrina Weiss of the Dubbing Brothers dub. I know Tecna is supposed to struggle with emotions, but she's also supposed to have emotions instead of coming off as a robot.
Their control unit is behind that wall.
The strange thing is that she actually sounds melodramatic, which is a weird contradiction, but it's true. She feels so stiff that she makes Griselda look like Stella in comparison. She's like an AI robot teacher. Tecna is supposed to struggle with emotions while still having emotions. It's a fine line, and this one went way overboard with making her lifeless, dry, and dull, but also in a hammy and over-the-top way. Next, we have the opposite problem with Morgan Decker of the Nickelodeon dub. Whereas Sabrina makes Tecna sound cold to her very core, Morgan makes Tecna feel like someone who doesn't struggle with her emotions at all. She sounds like someone who has fully embraced her emotions.
I have to study for a techno-magic exam, and she's putting on this tortured artist routine. Ugh!
I know a lot of people really love Morgan's performance because she does a great job with the emotional moments, but the issue is that she sounds too upbeat and perky to work as Tecna. There's no real problem with trying to understand and embrace her emotions, because she seems like someone who has never had to struggle with that a day in her life. Morgan is clearly a talented actress, but she was really miscast as Tecna. But I will say that her scream when she's pulled into the Omega Dimension is just so blood-curdling, and I love it. Next we have Leslie Carls from the first season of the Cinelum dub. First of all, I actually love the sound of her voice and how raspy it is. It does suit Tecna. However, while the tone is nice, the major issue comes with her acting, which is clearly amateurish. You can clearly tell she's never done any acting a day in her life.
Callisto? Fourth world of magic realms, upper ring? Wow, that's quite a ways away. Hi, my name's Tecna.
Oh my Poseidon, the acting is so bad and emotionless, but not in a way that feels intentional for the character. Now I do say a lot of the actors from the Cinelum dub sound like bad fan dubs, but a lot of the actors are actually good outside of this dub. Leslie, I can honestly say, is a genuinely terrible actress. It's no wonder Tecna isn't nearly as likable in the first season of this dub. She makes the character so boring and feel cold to her freaking core, but she's at least not not nearly as annoying as Sabrina and isn't too emotional like Morgan, although Leslie does not exactly have emotions. Now we get to her decent voices with Sasuke and Marleveld of the DuArt/3Beep dubs. It's nothing special or memorable, but I do like the raspiness of it.
They certainly won't be any help. We'll have to find the Quill Cat on our own.
It's not raspy enough, and if I'm being honest, Leslie's sound is more memorable, but at least Sasuke is a competent actress. There's just nothing special about her performance. And now we finally get to the good Tecna voices with Jodie Wrestler from seasons 2 through 4 of the Sinloom dub. I actually knew Jodie for her work as Francine Frensky from Arthur, which she's also great in. But it's honestly mermazing that I grew up associating her with a different character, and yet I don't have any issue associating her with Tecna.
22.4% in this suitcase and 78.6% in that one. A thing of beauty. Come on, follow me.
Her voice is so raspy, and I love it for that. It's mature, but it's not so mature that she sounds too old for her. She's rational, but can also show she's struggling with her emotions, and she's really great with the emotional scenes. I also love how she does a great job with Tecna's more humorous moments. I can honestly see why people love her as Tecna so much, and it's honestly one of the few performances from this dub that's actually great. Not even the terrible direction can ruin her genuinely incredible performance. However, it's just not the voice I associate with her due to the lack of a British accent. Now we move on to her best voices, the British voices of the 4Kids dub, starting with Rebecca Solar from season 3. She honestly does a really great job with Tecna's emotional moments and showing her more humorous side in season 3 to show her growth while still showing her social awkwardness.
Okay, girls, the Interdimensional Express is now accepting passengers.
I do think her voice is a bit too high-pitched compared to her first 4Kids voice, but it's still a more amazing performance that I love. She still feels like Tecna, especially the sass she develops in season 3. I absolutely love it. But speaking of her first 4Kids voice, the #1 spot is Denny Shaffel of the 4Kids dub. I mean, come on, I can't be the only one who associates her with a British accent. I love how her voice is deeper, which combined with a British accent makes her very distinctive from the other Winx Club girls, while still fitting with her character.
Callisto, fourth world of Magic Realm's Upper Ring, renowned for its rich artistic tradition. Its beaches are very popular with tourists.
Right, that's where I'm from.
Cool, my name is Tecna. The broom is elongated so that the user may reach high places. Good thing I figured out how to use the bucket. It's 3 meters tall and weighs close to a ton. Its fur is bristly, not soft. It walks upright, has horns in addition to multiple clawed limbs, and it gives off a foul, musky odor.
I honestly love the British accent and feel it suits Tecna because of how she has a hard time embracing things that exist outside of logic and reason due to how they are very foreign to the world of Zenith. So I feel like giving her a non-American accent actually helps to show that she's foreign from the Winx Club girls. That's not to say that non-Americans are basically from a different planet from Americans or struggle with their emotions. However, there is definitely culture shock there, similar to how the culture shock that Tecna has from being outside of Zenith and interacting with people who don't think that emotions are illogical. It adds to her character, and I honestly wish more of the dubs experimented more with different accents for Tecna. They don't have to necessarily be British, but they could have gave her a non-American accent in other dubs like Greek, Russian, Romanian, or whatever. But either way, Denny Shaffel gave a unique and perfect performance, and I honestly wish she had stayed for season 3. It's truly mermazing. And so those were my rankings for the voices of the Winx Club girls in the different dubs. As I had mentioned before, many of the dubs suffer from either incompetent directing or actors being miscast. Even dubs with great actors can be ruined if the directing or writing isn't very good, because it takes a team to make a good product. 4Kids has been dominating these ranking videos because they had great actors and competent directors that knew how to bring out a great performance. It's honestly why it's the only dub that hasn't suffered from a lacking performance from anyone. But anyway, what did you guys think? Did you agree with any of my rankings? What are your rankings for the Winx Club girls' voices? Let me know in the comments below. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. You can also check out my other social media accounts in the links below. I'm the Wicked Merman from Under the See Ya!